I thought I'd explain the type of joints I'm using on this wood box and kind of why. When I made this is the box I made for drill bits, and I used the dovetail joints on the ends. Okay, they were good, particularly if you have something that has a lot of strain this way, because they wedge in there, they're locked. Not so much this way. They're interesting to do, and they do what they should do very well. But for this wood box, not the ideal joint, because like I say, the strain isn't one way, it's from all directions. So I'm using this type of joint, and I'm using a lot of them. Now these two pieces that I cut are actually the two ends of the box. I've got them stuck together here now. I was setting up the mechanism for cutting the joints, and I have got it adjusted now, so it makes a very tight joint and leaves the fingers just slightly proud, which is kind of good because you can always take material off to bring it back down, but it's hard to add material in. So, and they're, like I say, they're really tight. They're like a dry fit, and that's what I wanted. But like I say, these two parts don't actually go together. These are really the two ends of the thing. And I have to make more, but see, that's a very tight fit. A squeaky tight fit. But the way I did this is what I wanted to explain. I'm doing them on the table saw using a stackable dado blade. And get the box. I'm pretty sure I've talked about these before. They're not expensive at all, but you get the two outside cutters and then a variety of chippers that go in the middle, including there's a thin one, and they also have a bunch of little paper shims that you can put in between the cutters to get the exact measurement that you need. Now that's what it took me a while yesterday. I spent half the day just getting this tuned in to where I needed it, because now it'll cut that deep, though I don't have to go that deep, but almost. But it makes a nice square cut. And the way this works, see what I was doing, I had to put this piece of steel on here, right on the bed, held in with two screws. Someplace around here. Oh, here it is. This guide, instead of using a rip fence, I'm using this guide, is made out of this 1/2-inch square tube. Now, I picked that up in Fleet Farm one day just for this project. Now the tricky thing is they aren't exactly a 1/2 inch. You have to find the right side, because one side is actually a little wider than the other, but it's square. So now this is set up so it's a 1/2 inch from the very edge of these cutters to this. Okay, and this is a 1/2 inch. Or let's say approximately. Like I say, I had to really fine tune this whole contraption to get it to do what I wanted to do, because then you can go down and cut at this 1/2 inch. Okay, then the next cut you simply go over that part there, and then you can run it back down and it cuts a second notch, and that's how these are all cut. But you've got to get your fit exactly right. So like I say, a good half a day spent monkeying around to get that exactly right. But now I've got a very good tight fit. So now I've got a whole bunch of these to hammer out. But it works very smooth. And the thing, like this, like I say, these not very expensive. I don't even remember what it is, maybe $30. But, you know, there's a lot of adjustment there. I don't know what the various widths are. But it works either on this or on my radial arm saw. Now, this tool, you know, this is an old or older, I think I got this like 20 years ago or something, Delta. But these were dirt cheap. I'm talking like $100 for a table saw. Not fancy, not really well made, but I've done a lot of work with this saw. Now, I've always wanted, you know, I thought it'd be nice to have a better one. I'd like to have a bigger table. I'd like to have a better rip fence, because like this rip fence is one that it simply clips on and then you go like this. Well, you know, there's a lot of not precision there. You know, there's a lot of movement. Even this, you know, not precise. It would be nice to have better stuff. You know, like a lot of them, the rip fence, you run it by a crank or two cranks, and it'll move over in very specific increments. This is a matter of, you know, I put it where I think it's going to work, then I do some test pieces, so I get a lot of these odd little scraps that I was testing things with. But in the end, you can get it set up right. Now, when I bought this table saw, I'm sure I didn't pay over $100 for it, and these are commonly things like this, power tools like this. Some of the lower end, though I say lower end, there are this for low end is very well built. I mean, it's held up really well for a lot of years under a great deal of abuse, because I use stuff like this in ways it was never meant to be used. Like, I'm sure even running a dado blade like this, you know, cutting a 1/2-inch dado, really not designed for that, but it's held up to that. So I wouldn't go and buy the cheapest one if you're looking to do this kind of thing. What you really want to do is to find yourself an old used one, and that's what I'd actually like to find, is an older one. Some of them old ones are built really heavy duty, and a lot of times what happens is people, they're upgrading their equipment, so they buy some new fancy one and they'll get rid of their old one fairly cheap. They turn up at rummage sales and stuff all the time for like 25 to 50 bucks, you know, but you can do a heck of a lot with them. You know, like I've got an old, it's a DeWalt radial arm saw that I think I bought for 35 bucks, but it's a great tool. You know, so that kind of thing, you know, I've got a lot of this Delta in the power tool stuff, and it's always been good enough. You know, that's the thing. Like this has got, the base here is plastic, and this is aluminum. I would prefer this that was not aluminum, because aluminum can tend to slide hard, and it will leave black marks on stuff. You know, aluminum is kind of funny that way. It'll discolor metal. I would sooner see a steel piece there, but for the amount of money I got into it, it's been a very good tool. You know, they make all these new ones that are portable, lightweight kind of things. You know, they're good if you're doing, you know, the stick construction on stuff, but for building things, you know, projects like that, you really want something even heavier than this. I would prefer also, like this is driven directly from the motor, I would prefer to have one that was a belt drive that you can actually use different motors on. Like I showed you that little joiner that I bought at a rummage sale last year. Well, not little, it's a pretty good size, but it runs off a electric motor, but it's just run on a pulley, so I can pull a David Bradley over to it, throw a belt on it, and I can use it, you know. So it's nice to have where you got some power options there. And you know, that's the first thing that's going to go out on something like this is the motor. Well, if you got the option of putting any other motor in there, that helps. But it's the kind of case where, you know, when I'm looking for something like this, I'm looking for something used, older, that was built pretty heavy. You know, because to me, this plastic on here, that's just there's no excuse. I was thinking back to when I was in high school. We had some equipment in our VOAG, you know, classes that had, you know, in the woodworking, because we had different classes, and in the woodworking stuff, we had some excellent power tools, you know, big old heavy duty stuff, just really great stuff. That's the kind of thing you want to look for, some of that stuff that's used, you know, the good heavy duty stuff. Because, like I say, this, a lot of monkeying around to get this to do the job I need it to do. But it does a nice job, you know, once you get it. It's better than trying to cut them all by hand. You can do a better job on this sort of thing, because you're really machining is what you're doing. But I got, you know, I schemed on doing this for a long time. There's many different ways of doing, you know, cutting these. You can do it by hand, or I could do it with the drill press even. You know, I've got those mortising bits that would work fine for doing this. I've done that before. But this actually is a little more precise than any other method. You know, these dado blades actually, the stackable type like this, because I've had adjustable dado blades. Well, they do a kind of a wobble thing. Sometimes they get a little raggedy. This, where you're cutting, and then it's got the chippers that take out the middle part, and it really doesn't pull that much power. I've never kicked the saw out using the dado blade, but it's partly because it's a 6-inch blade. You know, it's much smaller than the regular blade is meant to use. But like I say, someday I wouldn't mind getting a better one. But I can do a lot with this, and I have done a lot with it in the past. Cutting things it was never designed to handle. You know, like 4-inch thick pieces of oak, and flip them over and cut them one way and cut them the other way. You know, I abuse the crap out of them and sell together. So, you know, not a bad deal. But like I say, the plastic always annoyed me. And, you know, the adjustments aren't that fine, like I say. But if I get it set up and I run a few test pieces, you know, I can get it to work. But this will greatly speed up the whole operation. Had a little rain, which put me back today, but I'll be going at it again.